Hi everybody, I'm Mike Pavlichko here in Studio A of the WRSU Studios, side atop the College Avenue Student Center in downtown New Brunswick. Well, we've been in this building since 1969, everybody. That music, Dr. Music by the Peppers, our Knightline theme since we started that show in 1976 after football and basketball games. Now, in those early days, we had one host who stood apart from the rest and made Knightline his own. It was as entertaining to listen to as the games themselves, maybe even more. His name was Steve Vericker. He went on to a lengthy career in broadcasting after leaving WRSU, covering all the major sports for the major radio networks, and this summer, he was inducted into our WRSU Hall of Fame, its inaugural class. Sadly, we lost Steve not long after. We are honoring him here today in Studio A, where his radio career began. We have several of his friends and some family here as well. They're going to join us in a moment. I'll introduce you to them. First, though, we'd like you to listen back to Steve one more time, his speech from his Hall of Fame induction back in June.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Vericker, and I cannot tell you what an honor it is to be inducted into the inaugural WRSU Hall of Fame. I just am stunned by it. In 1977, in September, a young man walked into the studios of WRSU. It was a life-changing experience. Jerry Donnelly was the general manager at the time, and I got to work with Paul Spahala. Paul looked like a movie star. I, of course, looked like a rugrat. But they took me under their wing. They sent me out to cover fencing, which I still remember the difference between an épée and a saber. But over the years at WRSU, I made some remarkable friendships. And I also learned how to do talk radio, which boasted me well because I did it for 25 years in the Coachella Valley here in Southern California. Now, illness prevents me from coming here tonight, but it doesn't prevent me from telling you how honored I am. I found my niche doing Knightline, which is the call-in show after Rutgers basketball and football. I also broadcast the last Rutgers-Princeton football game, but I wasn't very good at play-by-play. But Knightline, I found my niche. I think my favorite story about Knightline is when the Big East was formed, Rutgers rejected the invitation. And I went on the air and said Fred Gruninger should pray at Commissioner Dave Gavitt's house of the Big East to atone for his sins of not joining. People still laugh about that. Ironically enough, many years later, I met Dave Gavitt's nephew. She lives out here in Southern California. I told her the story and she laughed. To my fellow inductees, the great Roger Cohen, who mentored so many of us while he worked at WCTC, Harvey Hauptman, who I listened to many times on WCBS FM in New York, Matt Pinfield, MTV VJ, Herb Sudson. Herb has been around since when WRSU was founded 75 years ago, and Mark Chernoff, who took a station in New York, WNBC, and made it into the greatest sports talk radio station in the country in WFAN. I don't deserve to be in your company, gentlemen, but I am honored that I am. And finally, I want to thank a special group of guys. Every day on WhatsApp, the 6 of us who met at WRSU, discuss sports and life in general. And many times when we've had crises in our lives, we have rallied to each other. And these gentlemen have rallied to me. I want to thank my brothers. I had 5 natural brothers, but I've added 6 in the last 40 years. Lou Blaustein, Dave Koenig, Jim Berman, Jeff Sadow, Dr. Bruce Bakowitz, and John Newman. Without you gentlemen, I don't know where I would be today emotionally. And without WRSU, I don't know where I would be in life. WRSU has meant so much to me as it's meant to so many of you. And again, I am humbled by this award. And I'm going to tell you something. For the first time, I'm left speechless in a long time. But I'm ready and willing, and I'm excited for all that is coming in the future. And I will hopefully be back in New Brunswick in September. And Mike Pavlichko, I can't thank you enough. Now we know why you won the best student advisor in the country a few years back at the IBS Awards. Thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry to have taken up so much time, but I am so honored by this award. Thank you.
Well, there you have Steve Vericker, member of the inaugural class of the WRSU Hall of Fame. By the way, I met him, I believe, for the first time at either those IBS Awards or the year before. and he brought me a T-shirt from KCOD, which I still wear around here. Everybody sees it out in the Coachella Valley in California, where he was last working as an advisor, doing much the same as I do. We've got several of Steve's classmates. A couple couldn't make it here this afternoon, John Newman and Jeff Sadow, but we've got Jim Berman, Dave Koenig, Lou Blaustein, Bruce Binkowitz, doctor, right? And Steve's brothers, Chris and Dan. We have a special plaque here we're going to unveil in a few moments, but I wanted to give these gentlemen a little time to talk a little bit about Steve Vericker. So, guys, I turn the mic over to you for a little bit.
Great. Well, thank you so much for Mike for inviting us to today's special ceremony to unveil the plaque for Steve. It means so much to us. It meant so much to Steve to be inducted in the inaugural WRSU Hall of Fame class. Lou and I had the privilege and honor to be at Steve's bedside in the Coachella Valley a few days before he passed away last September. And Lou, you can attest to it. When you walked into Steve's room, prominently displayed was the plaque, the Hall of Fame plaque. And Steve was so proud of his time at WRSU and was just so grateful to be inaugurated the initial Hall of Fame class.
Absolutely, Dave. And I also remember on that visit, he was very ill, obviously, and yet he entertained us. And not only in old stories, but he was bringing up new stories and cracking us up, which is the essential Steve Vericker. He wanted to make people feel good, and he was very good at doing that.
He certainly was. And Lou, you remember, we were there on a Tuesday. We had hoped to see him again the following morning on Wednesday. Over dinner, we sort of had our doubts just because he didn't seem like he was up to seeing us again. And the kind of person Steve was, he called both of us, left
Right.
He didn't call Dave and say, tell Lou. He didn't call Lou and say, tell Dave. He called both of us with virtual identical messages Wednesday morning saying, hey guys, it was great seeing you. I love you. I don't think I'm up to seeing you. And he said, bring home a victory against Virginia Tech on Saturday.
Which we did. And I want to bring in Jim and Bruce. You know, we're at the Knightline table, not the exact table we sat at 40-odd years ago, but close, same studio. What were your memories of Steve broadly and also at Knightline? Jim?
Well, actually, first, I just want to say, when we were all together on September 16th against Virginia Tech, and that was the day he was supposed to come back. That was the day we were going to see him. That was the day that we were probably going to say goodbye to him, and he couldn't do it. But we felt his spirit there, and just an incredible irony it was during the game when we learned that he had passed away. And it was just, there are really no words to even describe what that was like, but it somehow felt so appropriate, and you could just feel his spirit was right there with us during all that. But he was, going back to your question, he was the glue. I mean, you guys, I still look up to you guys. I mean, you guys were like, you're older, and so we were looking to you for guidance, and and Steve really showed us, I think all of us, what does radio broadcasting look like? What does Knightline, hosting Knightline look like? And boy, I'll tell you, when you were on a panel hosted by Steve Vericker, you knew you had to be at the top of your game, and you knew you were just it was going to be nonstop laughter. And it was just such a blessing, and really just helped to elevate all of us, I think, to be the very best we could be.
So, to me, a lot of Steve was encapsulated in his acceptance speech into the Hall of Fame. It was very humble. He didn't like to talk about himself unless he was sitting on Knightline, and then he would introduce himself as the host. And then while he never wanted to talk about himself, he had no limits on what he would say about everybody else. and you would know exactly what he's thinking. And I think that was something that, we really enjoyed. I know even, over the years, even as Steve mentioned, in our WhatsApp conversations, there are times that I know I did, and I know Dave also did at least, where we tossed things out there that were softballs, just to let him go off. Because we knew it was going to be the most entertaining part of our day, just reading his responses. Because he knew something about everything, and he knew a lot about sports. So, it was always like that. I mean, even earlier today as we were gathering, we learned more things from his brothers about Steve that we had no idea about. And that's who he was. Everybody else was very important to him. Everybody else who had people that were important to them, those people were also important to Steve. Your family was important to Steve. I think we've all had the experience. I know I did personally, where there was a time where I had an achievement that was recognized, and he called me. And I knew at the time he was in the hospital. And so I wanted to see how he was doing. And that was the last thing he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about me and what I did and how proud he was and how proud my family was. And, that was him. It doesn't matter. He was calling from the hospital. I was like, Steve, how you doing? And he was like, yeah. That wasn't what we were going to talk about, and there was nothing I could do about it because that's who he was.
And his career, his 25-year career in talk radio and other elements of radio, covering sports around the globe, including his love of Ireland. He reported for Irish radio on a number of events. It came full circle. A lot of people didn't know this about Steve, but after his radio days were done in the Coachella Valley, he worked, as Mike mentioned, as a faculty advisor at KCOD, the College of the Desert, and mentored many students who reached out to me over the last 6 months when I put together a little Zoom call for Steve. And he just loved that aspect. It came full circle, from WRSU to professional career to KCOD. And he was just one of a kind, really was a unique individual. And, the group of us, we think of him every day, and we're so honored, Mike, that we're going to have this plaque to christen the Steve Vericker Knightline Memorial Studio.
And there will be more. We'll have, of course, a Hall of Fame display, but as you came in through the hallway, you saw this beautiful room that was redone last summer. I think a lot of you were here when you came for the Hall of Fame. It was gutted and empty. We'll be doing the same in the hallway. So once we redo our floor and our ceiling out in the front, we will eventually have a Hall of Fame display out there, and he'll be part of that as well.
Beautiful.
And I think it's so apropos that the plaque is right by the table where Knightline happens, because this was as natural to Steve as breathing. And he and I often co-hosted together, and I had to be on my game to not get obliterated in a nice way, because I was often the straight man, and I just had to be ready. And it was an honor.
That's the best radio, though. That really is. All right, so are you guys ready to unveil this plaque? So we're going to have his brothers come on over here. So come on up, and we're going to unveil this new plaque. And from this point forward, whenever we're on Knightline, whether it's Alex Carminati, our GM here, although I think his Knightline career is pretty much done, he's a senior,
Yes.
or any of the kids who are back, this will be Welcome to Knightline from the Steve Vericker Knightline Studios. All right, so Chris and Dan are right here. Just tear that cover off, and away we go. There we have it. There you are.
Wow,
Give him a big
very
round of applause. Nice job there. Great plaque. Thank you, all of you guys, for coming back. Chris and Dan, it's a pleasure to meet you and hearing some of the stories. Like I heard something about pickleball or something, right? Some stuff getting involved in. And listen, thank you again for being here. Thanks to Dave Koenig, Jim Berman, John Newman, who couldn't be here, Lou Blaustein, Bruce Binkowitz. I know Jeff Sadow couldn't be here, but all of you guys, such close friends. And not only thanks for being here, but thanks for doing this for him, nominating him for our first Hall of Fame. Thanks to all of you for tuning in on 88.7 WRSU FM New Brunswick and WRSU.org. Stay tuned. Rutgers baseball, Big Ten action against Nebraska from Baton Field is coming up next.